So super excited to be here. I guess I'll just introduce myself while everybody's getting plugged in
Sure.
here. I am Lawson, founder of RaRa, a social curation protocol. Basically, today the only thing on chain for NFTs that the creator gave it, name, description, pointer to the metadata and file. And so RaRa allows for third parties to um, add additional comments, reactions, and tags to NFTs as well. And earlier this year, actually joined the Mass Network team. And so still working and building on Firefly, but also helping with one of the more exciting projects I'm excited about in the space, Firefly. So Firefly is it's a Web3 social aggregator. It's an app really just trying to be built for Web3 natives. Today, you're trying to keep in touch with various friends on various networks. You're checking Twitter. You're checking Farcaster. You're trying to see what's being minted and hot on various platforms. And so Firefly is simply just trying to solve that. One app for all the feeds. Farcaster, as of today, is live, along with Limbs, Mirror, Gitcoin, Twitter, or X. And yeah, so super excited to launch this. It's been live quietly for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now, the Farcaster integration. But we were excited to announce that we knew they were going to be opening up the gates to new signups. And so we figured, why not just do it then? And so we're actually, we'll get to it in a little bit, but we did release kind of a commemorative NFT. For those of you who, if you want to check out the app, if you mint the commemorative NFT, you'll be able to get access to the Firefly app. I'm not sure how to add it, to type in the cast here. I have to reply on Farcaster, not in the
No,
app.
you can reply directly in the app. You can just expand the chat, and then you will see a place for you to send the chat.
Will do. I'm trying to post this the NFT we dropped, but I'll do it if we want to just get into the space. Or happy to go about it however you want to.
Started. Well, there are a couple of things I want to talk about today. One is sort of, how the app works. I'm very excited to see, Firefly integrating with Farcaster. So we'll get into that in just a second. But also sort of your general view on Web3 social, the differences between Farcaster and other Web3 protocols, and also the difference between all kinds of Web3 social applications on a client level. There are a few things I want to talk about today. But to just get started, can you tell us a bit about sort of what makes this app special? And I would say that I've used quite a few sort of Web3 social aggregators. And my personal view on this is that it is convenient to have all your feed bundled together in one place, but it is hard to make a compelling product to compete with sort of protocol native applications such as Webcast. So to talk about, what do you think makes Firefly special?
Yeah, no, I think that's super fair. I mean, if you have one team integrating one back end, it's a lot easier. And truth be told, it's been super complicated. We've been integrating all of the various networks for a while now. So obviously, Twitter first. Mass Network was actually the first Web3 social thing, potentially in the entire space. Mass launched in, I think it was 2018. And kind of their first product that really took off was a Chrome extension that basically Web3 Twitter. The first thing they did was encrypted tweets. You had to have the extension to be able to read the tweet. They did PFPs 6 months before Twitter ever did NFT PFPs, along with hovering over, $ETH. You'd be able to see the price and swap directly while you're in Twitter. All the way down to NFTs. If people post an NFT from OpenSea and you have the Mass extension, and you're on the website on your desktop, you can see all the NFT floor price. And if you want to really dive into the NFT. And so we started with obviously we needed to integrate Twitter or X first. But our perception is really we're going through essentially an unbundling. We're going from buying a cable package where everything's bundled in one spot, Instagram, Twitter, and we're going through this unbundling where people are going to segment off into user interests. And a lot of the segmentation off right now in Web3 is basically like, what can we build that's permissionless? And so Lens, Farcaster are kind of the brand names that are focusing on that right now. But there's others, CyberConnect, other groups who have also tried to work on it as well. And so obviously we integrated the Lens network. We integrated Mirror, Gitcoin, and all NFT activity as well. And leading up to the Farcaster integration, we were actually ready with it 6 weeks ago. And what happened is V3 came out. And so, again, how do we compete against a client that's a native client to each protocol? The answer is, when we launched them, pretty tough. Because not knowing V3 was coming, we then had to basically refactor all of our code. And so the launch was delayed, but it actually, obviously worked out to be pretty good time, and we were able to announce it when permissionless day came upon us. But I think it's a really fair assessment to say, like, native apps are probably going to be pretty good at integrating the best features first, and it's probably going to be a pretty simple interface because how each of those how their network works is just one way. It only has one type of expected latency. It only has one way to post and one way to share and one way to collect the NFT. And so the challenge with something like Firefly is like doing that and like not having a super buggy app and making the experience simple. And so we're, just full transparency, it's an early app, just like all of these are early protocols. And so, Farcaster and Warpcast is bug bashing, and we're bug bashing too. And so then the question is like, how do we stand out? For me, aggregation is table stakes in Web3. Every NFT marketplace started off as they only had their own NFTs. And eventually they realized, we should aggregate other NFTs. And so obviously OpenSea is the largest, but Zora also aggregates NFTs from everywhere else in the world as well. And so for us, we believe in Web3 Social, everything will aggregate. The goal of each app is to deliver a different experience for their users. My hunch is to be successful as an aggregator is we essentially have to accentuate the superpowers of each network. Lens is the competitor here, quote unquote, to Farcaster, but I think they're actually super complementary. Lens, everything on it is collectible. And so a superpower that Farcaster, that Firefly would have to integrate to be successful with Lens is obviously collect, and that's being integrated right now. While Farcaster really just took a completely separate approach. They didn't deploy on Polygon like Lens did. They essentially are standing up their own chain. And that approach allowed for them to think very critically about like scalability and like how to structure the data. FIPS2 was, in my opinion, the most revolutionary idea that Farcaster had, and arguably what will make, this is between us, what will make Farcaster, I think, super successful. What FIPS2 allowed you to do is essentially attach a cast to any other like unique identifier, for example, a URL or an NFT. And that's actually how the different channels work on Warpcast. And so for us, how are we going to stand out? We have to accentuate the superpowers of each network. And in doing that, try to deliver an experience to users that just want to stay up to date on what's happening in the space. It's really hard right now. The goal of the app right now is just to keep people up to date what's happening, whether it be on-chain with NFT mints, to a launch on Launchcaster on Farcaster, or random mint on Lens or a Mirror post. We're kind of agnostic. We just want to keep people up to date to what they want to stay up to date with.
Yeah, and to dig into some of the details, one of the the advantages that an aggregation app has is that you will be able to offer just one feed with recommendation algorithms so that you're always up to date. So to talk about how the recommendation algorithm works on Firefly today.
Yeah, so today, again, because of the complexities of the different networks, there's different how fast does the Lens API response versus us standing up nodes with Farcaster. We're running our own nodes with Farcaster. Because of the differences of speed of the networks and how they act, we've actually started off with they are their own feeds. If you want to see what's happening on Lens, you click on the Lens feed. If you want to see what's happening on Farcaster, you click on the Farcaster feed. And so there's nothing super novel about that. But I will actually explain what's novel about it in the context of Firefly. So one of our sister projects is called NextID. NextID, from a framing standpoint, is a DID, decentralized ID protocol. And what NextID does is it connects Web 2 identities to Web 3 identities. A simple example is what wallet is attached to a Twitter account. Many of those connections are literally the users saying, this is my account. If you've ever connected your PFP to Twitter, you said that. If you ever signed a transaction from a certain wallet to join an account, all of that's publicly viewable. And so we don't fuzzy match. We just directly match whatever the user said the wallet was to the Twitter account. Along with, we have other ways of matching it as well. You can actually do it directly on one of NextID's apps called Web3 Bio. But what's cool about that is that actually means Firefly's entire account system is based off of NextID. And what that means is we essentially are solving a lot of the cold start problem, especially when it comes to joining new networks. And so I don't know how many of the people here just joined Farcaster, but if you just joined, you're probably not following anybody. But you probably follow a lot of people on Twitter. And so the way our app works, and one superpower of our app, is if you follow them on Twitter, you're going to see their cast as well on Farcaster. You're going to see the NFTs they're minting on any of the networks we support. You also see their Lens posts. Wherever they've posted it, if we think you follow that user, we're going to show it to you. And I think that's kind of a unique feature that, it gets people into the game faster. I don't have to refollow everybody if I don't want to on all the networks, although obviously we allow you, if you wanted to follow them on Farcaster, you can. But from the feed standpoint, we'll show it to you. And so those feeds, there's two ways to view those feeds. One is just a simple who do you follow? Who do we think you follow? And it's sequential by network. And then we also have a discovery tab, which is our essential attempt to recommend things you'll like, just like the For You page on any other app as well. That make sense?
Yep, 100%. And speaking of NFTs, a bunch of social apps are doing something very interesting with NFTs today. On Webcast, you are not able to mint it directly. You have to go to Zora, but you're able to share what you have minted directly on your feed. And on Interface, I think they recently launched this sort of infinite scroll feed for NFTs powered by the Farcaster follower network. So to talk about what you plan to do with NFTs in your app. Do you plan to allow users to directly mint in the app, or maybe allow them to share or to do something interesting with the NFT that they've minted?
Yeah. So we've taken the strategy really with all the other mobile apps because of App Store policies. We have to really dance around like what they'll let us do. And so Interface, I like Interface. Mask has a $50 million fund investing only in Web3 social. We invested in Interface. We like them as well. Similar to them, we send people out of the app to the browser to mint, especially when there's payment involved. When there's payment involved, you just can't do it with current App Store policies. That said, I think Google's kind of starting to open up the door on this, and so there's conversations happening that maybe Google Play will do something cool. So that's the status of today. We are in the process of integrating Lens free collects in app. That we can do and not violate any App Store policies, from our understanding. And in a very similar way, I think an easy next step after that is if we see a free mint on Zora or wherever, ideally we would try to put that into the app experience. But right now, it does take you out to the browser.
Good. Yeah. And I think this is a problem that mobile apps are facing today, right? There's no way to get around the App Store policies. So that's why we see most of the crypto apps today are on web and not even on mobile.
Just use a uh, mobile app, but then save it to your home screen, a mobile website, but save it to your home screen. Um, yep.
And the other thing that I want to touch on is a lot of the people on the audience today are builders, on Farcaster ecosystem. So I don't know how much you can comment on this, but can you talk about how Farcaster, sort of how much engineering effort was put into the integration? So I'm sure there are a lot of other existing apps that want to integrate with the Farcaster feed, but they're probably thinking, okay, is it too complex, or how much effort do they need to put into this? So I don't know how much detail we can get into this, but probably just talk about how was the integration process was
Yeah.
for Farcaster.
Yeah. So I'm not on the engineering team, and so I'm just kind of giving my a passive observation. But from my perspective, pretty easy. The only caveat is V3 came out and we had to refactor a lot of code. My perspective on how Dan and Varun and the Farcaster team build is they're really good editors. And they only build the thing when they need the thing, and they really kind of want to build it one very simple way. Not a ton of bells and whistles. It's just like, let's just do these key primitives really well. And so if you look at their docs, like they're super well documented, and there's not a lot of arguably like complexity to like how you would interact with the Farcaster protocol. The only other thing that was like novel with this one is we had to stand up our own. Um, they don't call them nodes. I forget what Farcaster calls them.
Hub.
Yeah, we had to stand up our own hubs. And so, unlike us using our infrastructure for in Lens, we just listen to their APIs. But if we wanted to, we also directly listen to each chain with single hash and a variety of other tools. That was unique to Farcaster, but it's arguably also why Farcaster could be more scalable than a lot of the things we're seeing out there. It was a necessary evil that to run your own hub to get access to the network and broadcast on the network and help users broadcast on the network. But the byproduct of that was we now have our own infrastructure that's maintained by the Farcaster ecosystem, and as long as we keep our hubs up to date, just like an Ethereum node, we'll stay up to date. And I think that's a really good. I think it was a really smart decision for them to do that. Nobody calls them a new chain. But that's what Farcaster is. It was smart to just build the network to do what they needed to do it well, a sufficiently decentralized social network. It allowed for them to edit where necessary and not have too much bloat of other features that other chains have that they don't have to have, and invite a different direction. Only add the key features that those other ones may have been missing.
Yeah, just a quick comment on the running your own node part. The other solution that you could use is to use the Naynar API or using the Naynar hubs. So you're basically using a hosted hub run by the Naynar team, and you can directly run APIs against those hubs, which you don't have to manage yourself. So that's also one option to save some sort of operational overhead. And I think the Webcast team has its own API, but I think that they're going to retire them pretty soon, later this year. And we're going to see more sort of Farcaster native infrastructure providers coming up. So that's also very exciting. The other thing and that I want to get into is, since we're on permissionless day, so talk about how you're going to sort of acquire new users. I mean, I'm not just talking about new users to the Firefly app, but also potentially helping users sign up to the Farcaster network now that it's completely permissionless. So I don't know if you have any plan on that.
Yeah, yeah. So today, this is an app we say built for Web3 natives. And so to do that, people need to show up with wallets to connect to the app. That's kind of the premise of the app today. And so we actually, it's in the chat. I just replied with the Zora Collect NFT. If you have a Farcaster username and handle, which everybody here obviously does, and you mint our welcoming Farcaster to Firefly NFT, a little collab NFT with the Farcaster bridge and the Firefly logo underneath, then you can get access to our app. Today, our app is gated by you have to have an NFT. Prior to today, you had to have a Firefly Pass NFT, which we have about close to 50,000 people on the wait list right now, and we've approved the first, I think, 4,000 people to mint. And so we're actually in the process of slowly opening up the gates to the rest of that wait list. But we kind of spotted an opportunity like, hey, we want to make sure once one of the protocols opened up to new users, we wanted to be able to give people a way to take advantage of that. And so launching this NFT was a simple way to do that. Now you don't have to have a Firefly Pass NFT. You can also mint this friend NFT that we did with the Farcaster launch. That's today. Where we go in the future, how do we get new users into to Firefly? I think it comes down to, again, in-app minting and in-app signups that is App Store compatible. Dan, founder of Farcaster, 6+ months ago was tweeting screenshots that basically they were striving for an experience where you used Apple Pay to pay to sign up. And again, why do I like the Farcaster team? They basically were saying from day one, this has to be App Store compatible, and also you're going to have to pay to join. That's kind of part of it. These things have on-chain activities, and these on-chain activities need to be paid for somehow, and maybe even, I don't know how much buffer. I think they have some buffer in there for the DAO to make money. But I think it's an important first step for someone to be willing to pay to use the service. Somewhat controversial in Web3, and especially controversial in social. But delivering that App Store compatible experience is obviously the next step. And that's a step that we're going to be integrating soon as well. We talk about deeper integrations. For Firefly to be successful, at some point, it's going to be about how many new people can we sign up and get them handles. And to do that, you got to do it in an App Store compatible way. I don't have a timeline on that right now, but I do know, totally going to be doing that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. It's fair to say that it is controversial to ask people to pay to use a social app. If you talk to the Web2 social people about this, they'll probably say it's insane for you to charge $12 a year, almost like a simple SaaS product for users to even get an access. But if I understand it correctly, for the Firefly app today, as long as you get access to the app, you'll be able to browse the Farcaster feed even when you don't have a Farcaster account, right? Is my understanding correct?
Correct. You wouldn't be able to reply to it.
Yeah, sure.
If you didn't have a Farcaster account, we still show the feed because we know who you follow on other networks. Again, this is, if we talk about superpowers, this is a superpower of Firefly. And, I kind of like that personally because, especially in the early days of a lot of these protocols, it's like, who do you know to get access? And there are a lot of people in the world that would love to use these things. And so these are open protocols. These are all the data is public. I think it's kind of cool that we show these people networks that they're not even involved on. Obviously, at some point, the user is going to want to comment or say hello or follow somebody, and we need each of those networks to say, "Yeah, you can sign them up." And those are going to be the opportunities. Arguably, if a user is a lover of Twitter, but they signed up for Firefly, they can actually get set up with no Web3 profile today. I think that's kind of cool. And so in that kind of sense, we're a little bit advertising for the other networks. Here's what's happening there. If you want to engage with it, you're going to have to get an account and get a handle on whichever one of them. And so I think that's something that's kind of cool for people who haven't signed up yet. Yeah.
I think this is one thing that I'm very excited about, sort of more Farcaster integrations in a bunch of different apps, because every single app can pull content from the network permissionlessly, right? And anyone can just read the posts from Farcaster. And then eventually when you have an algorithmic feed with all the content from Twitter, Farcaster, Lens, whatever, you don't need to have a Farcaster account to read that feed. And even if they want to, reply, they only need to register an account until they actually want to post something to the network. And I do agree that in a way, this is sort of an advertisement for Farcaster, because you are letting more people know what is going on in the network. So that's one thing that I think is very exciting, and we should push for more, crypto apps like Firefly to integrate with Farcaster, because then more people will read about casts that people have sent, and then they will get intrigued, and then maybe they want to pay.
Yeah.
Because arguably, I can't really convince people to pay $12 up front if they have no idea what's going on in a network, right?
Cast.com, and I think you can browse potentially without getting an account. But at some point, somebody, they want to post something, they want to join a conversation. It's our job in the network to produce good content and not be like just always trying to shill something and sell something, and deliver a new experience. The reason that we're seeing unbundling in social is a variety of reasons that we can talk about. And there's a whole lot of like buzzwords people use in crypto, especially, we want decentralization and stuff like that. And there's a small user profiles that do want that. But at the end of the day, like, they're looking for places to have like actual conversations and hang out with people online. And what happened is the town squares became big town squares where everyone was yelling. And as a result, you couldn't have conversations anymore. I became a super active user on Twitter in 2017 and 2018 when everybody left, Reddit, crypto Reddit. The story of like engaging with and talking about crypto started on Bitcoin Talk, and then it was on Reddit, and then there was the Bitcoin fork wars of fall of 2017. And around that time is when everyone said, "Screw this!" Everyone's like, they're kicking me out of chats and not allowing me to post in certain chats. I just want to be able to say what I think about different protocols, i.e., Ethereum, or forks of Bitcoin, whatever. And what happened is everybody left Reddit because they were being censored, and they couldn't stay in talking conversations. And to me at the time, as a builder, Twitter was really great builder conversations. If you were still in crypto talking about crypto in 2018 and 2019, chances are you were building something, and you weren't just there for a number go up. And so we had all these really cool conversations. Honestly, at the time, it was all DeFi. My background is investment banking, and Adam, I see you're an attorney. I'm also an attorney. And so it was a super exciting time to be on Twitter in that time frame, because we were able to have like really fun conversations about like, how do you structure this stuff? And what happened in the last bull run is those conversations all turned into shilling. Everybody was trying to sell you an NFT. And it's just not very, if you walk into a if you walk into a store and they keep saying buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, then you don't want to browse and look around the store anymore. And that's what happened to Twitter, at least in crypto Twitter. Everybody kept trying to sell you something, and nobody was reading the room that it just wasn't cool anymore. And so what's happening, I think, in Web3 social is we're looking for smaller rooms. And the cool thing about crypto is we're able to carry those smaller rooms around. Composability of these things and the public nature of I hold this NFT. And as a result, different apps can give me access to different things, token gating, or in the context of channels, adding data to a public object. The way channels work on Farcaster is, I believe it's a combination of FIPS2, but it's also for every channel, there's one NFT for that channel. If you go to DWR's Zora profile, you'll see he minted an NFT for music. And he did that because that's how their protocol works. All of the conversation in the music channel are people who want to engage with technically the music NFT. And the purple channel, different apps. Orb is an app on Lens, and they were smart. They created basically private feeds of everybody who holds certain NFTs from certain communities. And essentially all this is a technical implementation of trying to give people different rooms to go hang it online, and so they can like make friends and actually have conversations, even though all the data in many cases is public, unless you're doing like a private hidden post on some of these networks if they allow that. All the data is public. It's just about organizing it around the people who in the certain areas for where the conversation makes the most sense. Smaller rooms.
Yep. In Farcaster, at least before it became permissionless, had this feeling of sort of small and niche to crypto community where you can talk to other like-minded people. Everyone is building something, and almost everyone is a believer in sort of permissionlessness and decentralization, and is interested in Ethereum, right? So it's very hard to find a niche community where you can sort of share your opinions without the fear of sort of being canceled or being attacked.
Yeah.
But I guess with the creation of channel, it's sort of it is in the process of creating a way to scale that. Because each channel in itself is not super big, so you can again have this sort of cozy feeling, of meeting people who are interested in the same thing as you are, and I guess for the third party, and not third party, I guess for non-webcast, because there's no such term as third party anymore. We're permissionless. For any non-webcast application, you can still permissionlessly pull the data from the channel and integrate it, into your feed, and it would just work perfectly. I also want to hear a bit about your view on sort of Farcaster today, and sort of the roadmap that Dan has laid out for the near future, because what he has said is that he wants Webcast to be the best client in the ecosystem, and he wants Webcast to be the client that drives the daily active users for the protocol. But also, as we know that now the protocol is permissionless, so there's going to be free market, and anyone can compete with Webcast freely. So I'm curious how you see the development of both Farcaster and Webcast, and basically, what is your view on the future of Farcaster and Webcast?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, again, I like how Dan builds. He's clearly like a product person. They opened up the gates a little bit a few months ago. Um, and when they opened up the gates, what they saw is there was a huge drop off. They had a retention problem. And so they closed the gates. They stopped allowing new people in, or at least at like scale. And during that time frame that's when I believe I think FIPS 2 came out during there, but definitely channels did. And essentially what they realized is they had a cold start problem. People joined Farcaster. They had to figure out who to follow, and they actually created a feature where you could like, here's like a recommended batch of people to follow. And that's like step one, like here are some people to follow. And then step two was like, you were still just having trouble finding stuff that you cared about engaging with, talking about. Who are the people talking about music NFTs? I'm a big music NFT collector, right? And so to solve that problem, channels was their attempt to break up one huge fat feed into different rooms people can walk into, a little bit like Reddit, but the way they're structured, I think it offers for more novel ways to like create experiences around that. But I think that was like super smart. And so I say all that to say that like I think Warpcast will be the best app on Farcaster, and it should be. Different, I won't say names here, but different protocols have taken a hands-off approach. I don't build an app approach versus Farcaster, which is like, no, we have to build the app. And it's dog food, and it's all the things that like, any other founder or investor would tell you. They see the problems with their network if they're building the best app on the network. But they also, because they're listening and talking to users and regularly doing AMAs, and like they use the app every day, they see things that piss them off and they can fix it and make it better. And see opportunities to what could they integrate? You guys are doing voice, like should voice be native, or vice versa? Are there other protocols that they can integrate? They do a lot of stuff with Zora. I think that very simple, like a good example of that is like whenever you put an NFT link in Farcaster and they can recognize it's an NFT, they put that little baby button, the little baby mint button that opens up a browser outside of Warpcast. It's not an in-app browser that never works. It opens it up to whatever your default browser is. So you can go mint the thing. And that's a really simple thing that like only if you're seeing what people are posting in the space are you going to like know that, hey, we should do that in the app. And so, I'm not 100% positive on what type of features and what they're kind of seeing from the roadmap standpoint. But today it's a variant on a Twitter client, text-based primarily, with the exception of, usernames can be .eth. And oh, by the way, we're going to make it really easy to mint things as opposed to Twitter starting to block URLs and Instagram doesn't even allow URLs. They're leaning into URLs and off-platform minting, which I think is smart.
Yeah, and switching gears a bit, I want to spend some time talking about sort of your journey in the crypto, in crypto in the Web3 world, and sort of how you came into this space, the products you developed, because you've been a founder and now a main product person at a larger organization. So I'm very interested in hearing sort of your journey in the past, several years since you entered the crypto space.
Yeah, so I guess, to start from the beginning, I was obsessed with the stock market when I was young, and I wanted to be an investment banker, even though I had like no idea what that was. And I decided to take the backdoor route to doing that. I went to law school to try to use that as a tool belt to get into investment banking. And I was like the only person in law school like who wasn't like trying to like this hyper competitive market. I was just trying to get the knowledge. And during that time frame, I actually was trading a lot during like 2008 and 2009. And in that same time frame, I just found that like I was like, man, like law profession is like super broken. And so if I wasn't trading, I was like trying to think of ideas of like how could you recreate a better law firm and change the pricing model, which there was I forget the name of it. There was a famous startup that the guy who started Twitch started, but it already collapsed. It was basically the same idea I had like years before that. And essentially, what I realized is like, there's no way there's no way at least now you could like fix the law firm problem. But what I realized in that same process is like, I kind of like, I feel like there's an early feeling that I wanted to like build something. And so, not long after being in investment banking, I realized I was renting my time for paychecks and bonuses. But I was putting in at time, 100 plus hours a week. And those are, I have a, family of entrepreneurs, founders. Those are equity hours. And so I met the founding team of Synapse FI in 2014. Synapse FI was the first banking API in the US. We were the first API where you could actually open up an account and move money, consumer, business, move money, ACH, check, wire. So like Yodlee and Plaid is like scraping accounts. It's just read access. Synapse was read write. And our first customers in 2014 and 2015 were in 16 were Bitcoin startups and crypto exchanges. There were no Ethereum startups. There was no Ethereum. What happened at that is that was super exciting. Basically, if you were in crypto in 2016 and 2017, we probably powered you. You've probably used Synapse if you've used Kraken or Coinbase during that time frame, along with a lot of other apps. And what we realized is, what I realized is banking APIs were definitely the future of banking, but crypto was for this post-banking world. And so I couldn't see that. Was part of that founding team. Technically didn't start it, but took it through the pivot and grew it to $17 million Series A December 17. They since done Series B with A16Z. And I left, went full-time crypto in 2018, was briefly at a company called TokenSoft, building and emulating financial assets on blockchains, primarily security tokens at the time. Helped co-authored a ERC 1404, a standard that's basically a modified ERC 24 security tokens. And during that process, it was just essentially both of those spots were essentially idea engines. At Synapse as a banking API, anytime there's a trend in fintech, we saw 5 startups doing the same thing, similar. They all rhymed. And in a similar way, at TokenSoft, anytime there was a big token sale or something anything new was kind of happening in the space, we tend to see a few of those projects at once. And you can kind of get an idea that like, man, there's not a whole lot of new ideas out there. What were you interested in? And what happened to me is I left there in early 2020. And was really just was kind of done doing stuff for other people, and just felt like it was time for normal users in crypto, and so started working on what now is Rah around this idea that like, hey, we should give people more interesting ways to engage and connect with people online. And before we talk about Web3 social, essentially that's kind of what I started playing with. Fast forward to this year, if there's the founders in the room, they understand what the fundraising market was like over the past year. We launched our protocol into July of last year, which was kind of peak of the bear market. Was super tough to get the users and get the traction. But we were able to pivot it into a really interesting kind of protocol that nobody had done yet. It's really it's third party context or NFTs on chain. There's still nobody else who's done that yet. And kind of came upon the opportunity to, Mask was offering to invest and lead the round, but there was just the fundraising market was freezing up. Again, I don't know if y'all remember, but like USDC depegged, like we had a whole lot of crazy stuff happen last year. And it kind of came around to, I had been familiar with Mask Network from when they did the Chrome extension and the encrypted tweets on Twitter. And I thought that was cool at the time, but I kind of quickly forgot about them. But as I started looking at them again, I realized like, whoa, they're doing something interesting here. And if you looked at Mask and the different products they built and the different kind of teams they have out there, it's starting to look like what a new age Web3 social conglomerate would look like. They've done a really good job with desktop with Mask and the Chrome extension for Twitter, along with it works with Mirror and other websites as well. Now with Firefly, we're delivering a mobile app that brings all of Web3 into one spot. dev tooling in Web3 Social as well, Next ID that connects identities across Web 2 and Web 3 and powers our Firefly's entire account system. And then that, and again, also with rah protocols. And what I saw there is there was a kind of interesting opportunity to like, it was one of the few teams in the space that like was trying to attack the problem of social from every layer, completely surrounded the user, completely, vertically integrated. Each tool and each thing can feed itself. Everything can be integrated with itself or power the other thing. But at the same time, this is Web3. These things are also using other networks, other tools, and because they built a great tool, Next ID, we can make that available to other builders in the space. And so I thought that was super exciting. I joined the team right as I had my first kid, sold the company, and 2 weeks later, my kid was born. And they were nice enough to let me go on paternity leave, and came back this summer, and currently working on some things to make Rah the protocol more scalable and kind of relook at what's happening in the market to take it to its next step. But in the meantime, I'm helping Firefly with growth. I think it's the most important project for our company right now, along with to me, it's table stakes. It's exactly what's going to happen. Everybody's going to aggregate. And so we need to deliver a great experience aggregating and do the things to show off the superpowers of the Farcasters of the world. Yeah, that's kind of me. And
it is amazing to hear the story. I didn't know that you started with investment banking. I guess it was it was an interesting background. I actually started my career in management consulting, so I can sort of relate to the work environment. You're constantly under pressure, but you're not really producing anything meaningful, right? So working in Web3 is
no retained value. You weren't investing your time; you were renting it. And similar to Synapse, I couldn't unsee that. I'm like, I don't like renting my time. I like owning it. And so, when we put in the work as a founder and a builder, it's like you own your time and you own your upside, along with way more interesting conversations. By the time it makes it to investment banking or consulting, like it's kind of, it's pretty mature. Not a lot of innovation left for those projects, in those unique cases.
Yeah, because it's 100% mature industry with no alpha whatsoever, because they've been around for 1,000 years, and you if you're building something, you are accumulating equity by investing your time. So I 100% agree with that, and I really enjoyed hearing your story. I hope that people will get inspired a bit from your journey, from investment bank, from law school to investment banker, to joining startups, to finding your own startup, and getting acquired. Now, still growing your own product and Mask, and also helping grow, products like Firefly. So this is fantastic. In the last few minutes, do you want to talk about some of the action items that people can take, including what they need to do if they want to get access to the app? I think it's time to do a bit of plug.
Yeah, definitely. So I did drop the link to the NFT welcoming Farcaster to Firefly. As I mentioned, we just integrated Farcaster into the Firefly app. It's a mobile app today, App Store, Apple App Store, and Google Play. If you want to get access to the app today, it's token gated. You need to have a Firefly pass, or as of today, you can mint this commemorative NFT we did for the permissionless day. Mint that NFT and go to firefly.land website to get the links to go to any of the app stores, App Store or Google Play. And you can get set up pretty quick. All you got to do is connect your wallet and then sign into any social thing you want, Twitter, Farcaster, you name it. Once you do that, you're up and going pretty quick. If you have questions or feedback, hit me in the DMs. Twitter, Farcaster, wherever you want to be. I will check the DM eventually. I'm personally a big fan of Farcaster. It is, in my opinion, today at least, a community of builders, and so I spend most of my time over here. And so I'll answer the DMs over here pretty quick. But yeah, submit the NFT, download the app, check it out. Kind of going forward, what's happening in the future. We're going to keep building different features for each of these protocols, but also we're going to drop a web app. So you'll be able to eventually go to firefly.land and get the web app experience when you're not on mobile. Really, really appreciate you letting me come out and hang with you, Bill, on Permissionless Day. I want to give a shout
Yeah,
out to the app.
absolutely.
It works perfect. No sound bugs. Was able to figure out the chat. I like that whenever you create the cast, whenever you create the voice event, you schedule the event. It then when you post the events on Farcaster, all of the comments are that original post, which I think again is a good example of like how you use FIPS2 and how you use Farcaster in a unique way where you're organizing the data better. All the text conversation from this cast from this space are in one like super easy to find spot as opposed to lost on a lot of the other platforms. And so,
Yeah, I appreciate that. And
congrats.
I
Yeah.
appreciate your love for the forecaster community. I saw that you placed a bid for purple earlier today. But I guess someone else outbid you soon after. So it's
Well,
time to
immediately,
place
I
another
got to
bid.
get back in there. Um, the
Because we're part of Purple DAO. So yeah, I hope that you will get that NFT. And I do hope that Firefly will continue to integrate with Farcaster and bring more people to the network. And I also hope that after permissionless day, more builders in Web3 social space in general will try to integrate with Farcaster. And I'm really, really excited for what permissionlessness unlocks for us in the next 6 to 12 months. So thank you again, Lawson, for coming here today. I really appreciate your perspectives and your stories, and I think everyone should listen to your story towards the end. I'm going to make the recording available right after this, and I'll share it on Farcaster. So thanks a lot. Thanks everyone for coming, and I will see you on Farcaster
Happy Permissionless Day. Later.
later.